G'day everyone, Arjay here with another episode of Arjay's This Is Not Legal Advice and Nor Is It, also called TINLA for short. So this is a prediction video in relation to the court action or presumed court action, prospective court action by Steve Dickson against the Australian Electoral Commission in relation to the election. So basically it appears from the information that they have provided that they are trying to contest the election for the state of Queensland for the Senate count, and basically this is a very short version. I will do eventually a long version of what happened in the 2013 federal election that I know from my own experience, as well as potentially going into the 2016 federal election. But in 2013, there was a re-election for the state of Western Australia. So there is precedent for such a thing happening. But the problem for Steve is that he has to show the court as to not being a moot case. So obviously, if he has a case but it hasn't affected the actual outcome of the election, then the court would not have the case succeed, basically. So that is a big problem for Steve. You also have the AEC having certain checks and balances in place, including that they recount all the votes afterwards anyway. So if there are any votes that had Steve Dickson and Rebecca Lloyd as one of the above the line votes, that even if it was mistakenly called an informal vote or an invalid vote in the actual polling place, then that would be fixed up later. The big issue is if people who were misadvised, and if there are enough people misadvised who completely changed how they would have voted. So if you had, 1 million people that would have voted for Steve Dickson, but they heard, hey, look, you can't vote for Steve Dickson or Rebecca Lloyd, then that would be a different story. But if there's, 500 people affected, which may well be a big number for how many actually were, and they were misadvised and then they voted in such a manner that they completely changed how they would have voted. So if they're going to put Steve Dickson as number one, their group, and then, number two as One Nation or the Greens or whoever, then that would affect things. But that is going to be a very hard thing for Steve to prove. And I think that, I think they've already been advised. And he did say that he would release that information by Friday, as in 2 days ago. But, maybe there's delays, but I presume he has been advised by the lawyers not to go ahead. Also, for Steve, he did in his last video, which I think was on Thursday maybe, but I watched it last night just to check if he has, released the advice that was given. But Steve suggests that he will pay some people some money who have been helping him. But I strongly suggest, and it's not legal advice, but I strongly suggest that Steve doesn't do that because he has collected money for a specific purpose, being for legal advice. And if those people are not actual lawyers and therefore entitled to professional legal fees, then Steve can end up in a lot of hot water. We've already seen that Dave Oneglio and Dottie Jansen have had their accounts frozen, including, the business accounts and private bank accounts, that kind of thing. Ricardo Bossi, from memory, claimed that he had his bank accounts frozen and investments, and going from their words, then, I suggest Steve not to risk that, because the purpose of the fundraising was, specific purpose 1 and specific purpose 2, which is to pay the people who were helping him, which aren't actually lawyers, which I take it that one would be Rebecca Lloyd and then maybe Rebecca Lloyd's friend, who is in the One Nation Party from memory, who actually is a lawyer. But if the person's not a lawyer and the money hasn't been collected for that purpose and it is not directly related, then that would be a very bad idea. Anyway, I will eventually do a video as to what happened in 2013's federal election, but, that might be a week away or something like that. So, again, my prediction is that Steve would have been advised by his lawyers not to proceed, that the case is weak, despite that the AEC did do the wrong thing and misadvised and mistrained their staff. The people signed up for $20 an hour or $25 an hour, $30 an hour, who are just brought in as temporary people. But the point is that it cannot be said that it has materially affected the outcome of the election. You also have Senator Pauline Hanson was just returned. So again, it's not like they can argue with a friendly person that basically, Pauline missed out on the election by 5 votes or something like that, because she has been returned. And the Labor and Liberal parties obviously wouldn't want another election, nor would the Greens, even if it's just for the Queensland Senate. So again, I think that he would be told don't proceed, and if they did try to proceed, that the registrar might put the kibosh on that, and they would have to seek leave of one of the 7 High Court justices to ensure that their case is actually a strong case, that it has legal merit and has materially affected the election, which I suggested that it has not actually materially affected the election, despite, some people might be missing out on some electoral funding, something like that, but that the court would be very adverse to, spending millions of dollars, $1 million, $100,000, whatever, of taxpayer money, even just for the government lawyers to have a case that is not so significant. Even though the real beauty is raising awareness of some electoral practices that should not be done that way, and hopefully things can change, but, I don't think that it would be successful. And even if it did go to court, again, I think it would be unsuccessful. And again, just summarising, Steve, I would not be paying people who are not entitled to legal professional funding or some disbursements. Maybe someone has done something, like driven something to the lawyers or something like that, and should get paid reimbursements for fuel. But besides that, I again suggest, not legal advice, but I suggest not doing that, or you'll make many problems for yourself. I suggest, potentially. Thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, and if this video gets shared around and if people are interested, then I can explain what happened in 2013. As I said, that was very similar. Cheerio. Bye.